why EA's new open world Star Wars game is a dumb idea. Now, as we all know, this is news to me recently, very recently I discovered this, and it's probably news to you as well, considering how this game was found throughout the internet from GameSpot. And you want to know how it was found? Well, EA decided to post some job listings in EA Vancouver webpage, or on the main website for EA, for the studio working on this new online Star Wars game. And where did this all come from, and why is it happening? And for the love of God, I'll ask it again, why is it happening? Now, I understand that Star Wars has seen through a lot of flack lately, and that's due especially because of, let's just say, Star Wars Battlefront 2, the pay-to-win controversial moments it had. I can't tell you how many times we have faced controversial things with EA on anything, but the fact that they did it with Star Wars twice, how they ruined Star Wars Battlefront franchise twice, has been a sign of bad things to come. Now, I will admit that EA is working on making Battlefront 2 better by revamping the whole progressional system, taking away paid microtransactions, and having an actual earning system within the game. Now, microtransactions aren't gone in the game, but you cannot buy it with real money, and it is cosmetics purposes only, which is great, which is a stepping stone for a company to get their shit together. But what does this mean overall for Star Wars games, especially for a Star Wars open world RPG? Well, like I said, Star Wars hasn't seen very good light lately. There hasn't been really any true Star Wars game. When I mean true, I mean actual game that has had work put into it, that actually doesn't piss people off. Now, you could argue that Force Unleashed 2 was the last game that has been put the most time in, and Star Wars The Old Republic, which is considering doing fairly well, considering there's always expansions being made for The Old Republic, and that's great. It is a great MMORPG, and it is, as you can say, some people like to say, although they don't want to admit it, the next KOTOR 3, which has been out since 2011. Now, I understand that people didn't want an MMO Star Wars game to begin with. They wanted the next Knights of the Republic 3. It's not going to happen for the longest time, not by Obsidian, and definitely not by BioWare Entertainment. The only thing we're going to be getting for Star Wars Knights of the Republic is the Hyperion mod that is coming out whenever that is, you take it with a grain of salt, which is a complete overhaul mod, a graphic mod. I don't know if it's changing gameplay mechanics entirely, but graphic overhaul for the original Knights of the Republic. You can check it out on the Twitter page. Just type in Star Wars Knights of the Republic Hyperion, and you'll definitely find it. They always do constant updates and do live streams for their development. But a lot of work is going into that, which makes me happy. We get to see step by step on what they're doing. Now, this Star Wars game, open world, used to be a very hardcore story linear game that was being developed by Visceral Games, the same guys who brought you Battlefront Hardline and the Dead Space series, which now recently has shut down. And when I mean recent, I mean by a few months or maybe 5 months now. It's been a while. And now the project has been handed over to EA Vancouver. So what do? Well, EA decided that we should have an open world Star Wars game, and I guess fans have been wanting to see an open world Star Wars game since Star Wars 1313 and before that, back in 2007, when all things were going good for Star Wars, for the most part. Obviously, there was always ups and downs on Star Wars games. It's a mixed bag, more or less, but definitely with me, I have more fond memories than bad memories. But why it's a dumb idea? I think I keep saying that, but why it's a dumb idea is because EA doesn't know how to handle AAA titles. We've seen it with Mass Effect Andromeda, we've seen it with Star Wars Battlefront, and we're going to see it with Anthem. And those two titles, Star Wars Battlefront and Mass Effect Andromeda, was definitely a plummeting point for the AAA genre. And we've seen other games that they have destroyed, like the Ultima Online series, which has been completely destroyed, although there are people doing spiritual successors to the game, and Ultima Online is still a thing. It's still being played. There are still servers, and you can always jump in and enjoy it, but EA definitely tampered with that big time on any further standalone Ultima title. So why doesn't an open world game sound that exciting to me? Because like I said, EA doesn't know how to handle anything right now in terms of Star Wars. They've destroyed 2 Star Wars games in a row. So far, they've struck out twice. One more and it's out to the ball field. And you could even say that is the last strike. We have Anthem coming out soon. Eventually, not soon. Eventually, we have Battlefield 5 coming out. And we have Dragon Age 4. And we haven't heard anything about Mass Effect Nothing on Dead Space, of course, because like I said, it's been shut down. So far, it's not looking good. Like I said, the last Star Wars game, last AAA, I would even, if you want to argue, consider Force Unleashed 2. I never played Force Unleashed 2. I played the first one, and I thought it was a fairly entertaining game. A lot of people didn't like it so much, but I had a good time. Now, you could even go back and say the most truest Star Wars game was Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy. But come on, folks. Come on. That was like 13 years ago, and maybe Star Wars has gone downhill from there. We don't know exactly. And it doesn't help that it's been shifted to many different companies, especially EA as the corporation that owns all Star Wars, basically licensing for games. For BioWare, for EA Vancouver, it was for Visceral Games, EA Motive, DICE, and you get the idea. So in order for this open world thing to happen, they need to start getting their act together completely as a whole, as a company, before they start doing other ambitious stuff. As we can tell, Dragon Age 4 has a skeleton crew, which all the top tier people are working, that were working on probably the Dragon Age 4 and Mass Effect, is on Anthem, which is going to be their biggest selling title of all time for them. They're going to try so hard to make it a thing. And that doesn't bode well for us. Because do we really want to see this Destiny clone-like game out on the market? No, we want to see actual games with good story. We don't want to see a lack of story like in Titanfall 1 and Battlefront 1, and then barely any story mechanics in Battlefront 2, a 4-hour campaign talking about a woman who can take off her helmet multiple times to show that she's making a difference in the world, and like nothing else matters. It's a very poor game. I streamed it in one session and I beat it easily. It's not a difficult game, although the mission design and the graphics are pretty good, but the story is very weak in its narrative and just sense. It doesn't make any freaking sense. There's no sense in it. Let's try to get the gang back together. Now, I understand that an open world RPG, especially on a Star Wars scale, and especially how it's owned by Disney, and there's a hefty sum they have to pay up front to Disney. But apparently Disney already proved it because the job posting is there. But also, you can argue that the job posting has been removed because there has been an article day after the other article talking about how there is a job posting, and there's another article talking about how there isn't. So it's very convoluted, and the fact that we're finding out that game is listed through a job site on a web page and has to be accidentally discovered by a reviewing company, GameSpot, is never a good sign. Never a good sign. Now, of course, we discovered many games with job postings, like we discovered Diablo 4, and a lot of us were probably pretty excited, considering how bad Diablo 3 did in its first run, its first year. Basically, its first day, let's just call it that. And it's probably cursed the franchise for a while until we see a brand new game to overlap that all. Now, I do admit, Diablo 3 is very fun and very great game nowadays. We all miss that grim experience with Diablo 2 and 1. The fact that they're trying to get their shit together and making things right from Blizzard's side of things, and they are working on a Diablo 4, well, I am a little more hopeful because Battlefront 2 wasn't even out for that long, and it just put people in rage. The beta, lack of whatever you want to call the content in Battlefront 1, and then they screwed up again a second time. So what goes around comes around. It's a very ambitious title. Very ambitious. AAA titles aren't going very well for EA right now. So we're going to have to pray and hope that this is not going to happen for the longest time, and they're actually going to wait to actually work on this until they work out all their other kinks in the meantime. We definitely want to hire the best people. I would be even excited to see Casey Hudson work on the game. It'd be interesting to see him not working on an action RPGs, kind of open world, kind of online like Destiny. When I mean kind of, not MMO, but really close to it. So what does this mean for you guys? Are you excited for this type of Star Wars game? Are you also worried that Star Wars open world RPG is definitely should not be a thing right now? I think so as well, because like I said, it's too much of an ambitious title for EA to handle, considering they're doing little baby steps right now in our little victory we have over the Star Wars Battlefront 2 bullcrap that's been going on with this revamped system and how they're trying to come back stronger than ever. But is it enough? Definitely not. They have a long way. That just puts a little thing on the scale, but the other side of the scale is weighing down like a goddamn black hole. It's tough. It's going to be a lot of work. It's a cool idea on paper, but is it in the cards financially, and is it the right time for EA to do it? Definitely not. And Projects shouldn't be tossed aside to other companies. That never goes well. Just like staff should never be tossed aside to other projects. That never goes well for the company that they left behind or the project they leave behind. It would have been great to see Star Wars 1313, but that game in itself too ambitious as well. But leave your comments below and let me know what you think. Why this is a dumb idea or why you think it's a great idea. And maybe we'll see an open world Star Wars RPG game like Cyberpunk and The Witcher 3 and Skyrim. It would be pretty amazing, don't get me wrong, but we would much rather have it made by not EA.